California Republican Kevin McCarthy was finally elected Speaker of the House of Representatives Friday after a night filled with drama, deal-making, and near brawls on the House floor.
That was easy, huh? I never thought we'd get up here.
McCarthy lightened the mood as he took the gavel, closing the process after some Freedom Caucus members held out their votes for concessions to the rules. By Friday morning, with phone calls from former President Donald Trump, the holdouts dwindled to 6 members after McCarthy made numerous concessions, such as a one-member no confidence vote and a promise to hold votes on key conservative issues. Many expected he would win on the 14th vote, but Florida Republican Matt Gaetz threw the House floor into disarray. A visibly frustrated McCarthy confronted Gaetz, and Representative Mike Rogers had to be held back from a near physical altercation. The House started to adjourn when Gaetz suddenly signaled they would stay for another vote to secure McCarthy the Speaker's gavel. Gaetz and the 5 other holdouts all voted present in the 15th round, allowing McCarthy majority to win. It was the longest race for Speaker in over 163 years. The homeless immigrant encampments filling the sidewalks of El Paso were swept clear before Joe Biden's Sunday visit to the border, his first in 5 decades as a politician. Hundreds of illegals surrounding the Greyhound bus station and Sacred Heart Church were moved out of sight by local police and border agents. The Washington Examiner reported that border agents were also called in because only federal police can make immigration arrests. When the president arrived in El Paso, he was greeted by Texas Governor Greg Abbott, handing him a letter ripping his border policies. Abbott declared the visit too little, too late, and pointed out Biden avoided places where the mass illegal immigration occurs. The governor also wrote, "Your open border policies have emboldened the cartels who grow wealthy by trafficking deadly fentanyl and even human beings." The letter went on to say Texans are paying a high price for Biden's failed border policies. Fior.
Mike, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis activated the National Guard Friday to help address an alarming surge of illegal immigrants landing in the Florida Keys. DeSantis signed an executive order after nearly 1,400 migrants were intercepted over New Year's weekend. More than 360 landed in the remote, dry Tortugas Islands National Park, which was forced to close to visitors. The mayor of Monroe County in the Florida Keys says the influx of illegal immigrants is straining law enforcement and other government services.
We're hoping and sort of interpreted that they're going to send help down here, resources.
Some of those resources will be National Guard planes and helicopters to patrol the waters in a bid to intercept migrants making the dangerous ocean crossing. Mayor Gaetz is also hopeful Joe Biden's new immigration policy affecting Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans will deter some from coming. DeSantis says more than 8,000 migrants have been intercepted off the Florida coast since August. The United States Customs and Border Protection announced Friday that construction on the border barrier at the Yuma sector starts in days. But officials in Yuma County say the promise to close gaps near Morelos Dam was not met by Joe Biden and his Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in the past 2 years. Meanwhile, the massive flow of illegal immigrants through the sector has overrun their hospitals, shelters, and much more. Former Republican Governor Doug Ducey placed storage containers at the gaps as a mitigation strategy, which led to a lawsuit and its subsequent recent removal. Just the news reports, as of October, the Yuma sector had nearly 50,000 migrant encounters.
I'm concerned about the flow of narcotics coming across. I'm concerned about the fact that the cartels control our border. The federal government does not. They've abdicated that responsibility, and the cartels are making a significant amount of money. When you look at some of the costs of human lives across the border, less than 20 miles from where I'm standing, the cartels have been warring, and they've had over 100 assassinations this year in an attempt to control this area of the border. Nobody talks about that.
In a statement, U.S. Customs and Border Protection said, quote, "The safety and security of our workforce, law enforcement partners, and the local community are a top priority." Tim?
We're pleased to welcome the host of the Blind Politics podcast and professor at Regent University's Robertson School of Government, A.J. Nolte. Professor, welcome to Victory News. It's great to have you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Okay, we finally have a Speaker of the House, and he said his first order of business is to repeal funding for Joe Biden's 87,000 new IRS agents. Now, that sounds like a great idea and a great start, but listen to House Minority Whip Katherine Clark and her take on what has happened in the House.
The American people and the solutions they need to meet the challenges that were completely left out of the Speaker's chaos we saw this week. It not only endangered our country's national security, but it also showed that the keys have been handed over to extremists.
So the House debate for Speaker last week was a threat to the national security, according to Clark. What's your response to that?
I would say no, it was not. I think there might have been a legitimate concern had the Speaker contest gone on for a couple of weeks or a month, just because it would have been difficult for folks to get, without being sworn in, to get access to some of the secure facilities and secure briefings. But that didn't happen. And I don't think that a 3-day difference, 3 days of this is going to make much of a difference. I think that this is an unusual thing that happened, but it's not abnormal. What I mean by that is it's been a long time since we've had a contested speaker's race, but it is also a normal part of the constitutional functioning of the House. And let's also keep in mind when we talk about extremism that a lot of the rules changes that people wanted were actually rules that were in place before 2019. Now, some of it certainly was an attempt to open things up and dilute the power of the Speaker. And that's going to make Kevin McCarthy's job harder, I don't doubt. But some of these changes were also just going back to the way things were before Pelosi took over in 2019. And I don't know that Democrats are really going to have the last laugh here either, because given how divided and polarized we are as a country, there's a decent chance the next time they get the majority, it's pretty narrow. And if Representative Clark thinks that the Republicans are the only people or the only party that have people that would, throw a spike in the wheels about this, she should probably check the Instagrams and other social media platforms of the squad a little bit more carefully, because they could be in the exact same position the next time they have a narrow majority.
Okay, you've done some investigating on the left's growing use of the term Christian nationalism. Tell us how it's being weaponized against Christian conservative voters.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say that a lot of social scientific research has claimed that socially conservative voters all hold these Christian nationalist views, and they make that claim by conflating fairly traditional social conservative or Christian Orthodox views with some views that are associated with more strident forms of nationalism. That's a bait and switch, and there's no evidence that those things directly correlate. It's dangerous in two ways. One, I think it stokes the fear of more secular folks about a Christian takeover. And two, for those who are more socially conservative but are not well grounded in a Christian worldview, it might confuse them into thinking that this sort of nationalism is actually Christian orthodoxy. I think our best response is to not accept the names that our opponents want to give us and to educate for a robust Christian worldview like we do here at Regent University.